First on Fox, the Lukeville port of entry in Arizona is now officially closed. U.S. border officials pausing operations due to the rise in the number of migrants showing up at the U.S.-Mexico border.
Most of them are walking into the U.S. through gaps in the wall and surrendering at official border crossings to seek asylum. Officials say the desert crossing has become a major migration route in recent months, where smugglers are just even sometimes cutting a hole in that wall with a saw and letting the migrants go through.
So with the closure there, people heading into Mexico or trying to get back into Arizona, they've got two other options, but that would involve a long drive, either choice. The Mariposa port of entry in Nogales to the east, that's more than 200 miles away, or the San Luis port of entry south of Yuma, that's 216 miles from Lukeville.
It's a long journey. Agents who would be working at the port are being redirected now to help with the influx of migrants.
Fox 10's Justin Lum is live at the border wall in Lukeville, where around 1,000 migrants are currently in line. And look at the trash behind you. Unbelievable.
John, Christina, we've talked to migrants from different countries. They basically been living here and waiting for days to try and get to the next step and be transported to the collections center, if you will. And just take a look behind me. Yes, you can see the trash here left behind, and what looks like basically the length of a football field, sections of lines going down the border wall. Our photojournalist Mark Johnson giving you a look at that. I spoke to Customs and Border Protection as we arrived today. Basically, once these migrants are transported and taken into custody, the next step is processing at either the Ajo or Yuma stations before heading to Tucson, and by plane or bus sent to another sector to be detained to seek asylum. Now, encounters here at the Tucson sector have gone up 140% in the fiscal year of 2024 compared to last year, and we've seen much more single adults here, many of them men waiting in line. Vulnerable people, being the families of women and children, took priority here, and they are been now taken away about a couple of hours ago. We saw them. And earlier I spoke with a man named Emmanuel from Nigeria, who has been here for 3 days or so, telling me he traveled through 11 countries to get to this point. Take a listen.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I'll survive this night again. It's so cold and there's no food. There's no water. Like the water, you have to wait until you get this. There's like, if you're like shelter, you know, maybe tent and food, like some humanitarian government here pass some apples out, you know, it helps. Like, there's no, you don't understand, like staying out 4 days, 5 days without food, without water.
Back out here live, you've seen the trash here. This has basically become a campsite for these migrants who have been collecting firewood because it does get so cold at night. They've been sharing crackers, granola bars, and snacks, things like that. Also cheering when the line gets closer to the front so they can move on to the next step of processing. Now, Governor Katie Hobbs did speak to the press earlier today, and specifically about the Lukeville port of entry. She said that she would not be sending any state resources here, and that the federal government needed to step up and address the border crisis. John, Christina?
Justin, what is this process like? Are these mostly singles that are in line waiting for days? Because families, they kind of get pushed to the front, right?
Yes, that's pretty much what we saw. These sections were split up with families in the front, and then you had about 3 lines of single adults waiting their turn. The families took precedence, and so now for the day, they have been taken to the next location. As for the single adults here, one man told us that it's been about 200 people each day being moved out of this area, so they have hence been waiting for a few days. One man has been here since Friday. He's from Ecuador, and so finally today he got moved up and is on to the next location. It is quite a wait, and yes, the families do take priority.
Yeah, and Justin, we've been trying to kind of clear this up throughout the day. When people come here, they are not being stopped and detained. They're being processed and moved to the interior. And the numbers we're hearing right now is maybe only 10% truly have legitimate asylum claims. The rest are essentially economic migrants. They're coming here for a better life. You can't blame them, but that's the reason they're coming.
Yeah, we spoke to one man. The man actually heard from Nigeria. He said he's come here for the American dream. Customs and Border Protection PIO John Manel told us that crime in your country is not enough to seek asylum. There has to be more basis such as persecution, things like that. To basically prove your case here, they will speak to an asylum officer and be detained. And at some point that will be determined if, they can keep going on to the next step as far as asylum. So that is a long process.
Yeah, 7 years, 6, 7 years at least. Thank you, Justin.